Hello there again, everybody. Boyd back with you, and welcome back to another edition of TrekWorks. We're continuing on with the buildup of our classic Enterprise here in 1/350 scale. You can see everything's coming along well. Since the last video, what I've done here is I've installed the Bassard boards from Tenant Controls. I didn't film that because it was pretty straightforward, guys. You saw we had the 3 wires hanging down from each nacelle on the last video, and you basically connect those straight up to the board and then just install them with some glue. The wires are plus and minus, and you have the extra 3rd wire for the trigger wire there, which controls the speed that we've got running all the way through the model and coming out down here. Now basically how that works, guys, is if you buy one of these kits, you'll see how it's wired up. This trigger wire here basically is set up to a switch where you just momentarily push the switch, and it, for lack of a better term, it shorts against the negative side of the power here, and that momentary interruption there gives you your trigger to change the speeds of the Bassards. I'll go ahead and turn this on for you here real quick so you can see how they look. You guys remember how these looked in one of the other builds that I did, and I really like these. And again, they're completely motorless and they're quiet. I'll show you what we get here just by demonstrating. I'll just touch this wire on the negative side here, like I mentioned, and you can see it's changing the speeds. And we get down to the very slowest speed, and then we hit it once more, and it goes all the way back to where we started at the beginning. So we'll show you how we set that up when we install the switches. Today what we're going to be doing, guys, is working on the lighting of the saucer. You can see I have the control board mounted in here, the round 2 board. We've brought our jumper wire up from the lower board, which brings power up to the board here. We're going to be installing some more jumper wires that run our navigational lights, and also the 2 lights that go to the back here for the impulse engines. So after that, we've got to tie in all of our other lighting here that you see. That's our strip lighting that we've installed, and that will light all the windows around the perimeter of the saucer. And then I'll be making a piece of sheet styrene here that will mount, actually be gluing that down to the bottom side of the upper part of the saucer with some LED strip facing the bottom and some facing up. The upper will light the bridge and all the bridge windows on the BC deck. The lower will light all these windows around this inner perimeter here. So I'll come back and get the camera set up on the tripod, and we'll take you for a little ride as we go along today and get all this assembled. And once that's all done, I'll just be painting the little bridge and installing the little crew figures, and we're going to put the bridge in, and then we'll be able to seal up the saucer top, and things will be looking really good here. Just kind of take you around it one more time here. You can see the Bassards are working really nice, and all the lighting is going on. We went back and cleaned up all of our overspray and everything down here on the shuttle bay, and everything is sealed up really nice on that. Like I mentioned last time, we'll be coming in here and using some canopy glue to seal up that upper edge there where you got the light leak, and then we'll be letting that dry and touching that up with some paint, installing the shuttle bay doors and the dome on the top and the beacons as well, and that'll complete most of the assembly. We've got the end caps on the engines here, and we've got to put the manifolds on and everything, but it's coming along really good, and we're just about done with it here. So okay, guys, I'll be back in just a second. We'll have the camera set up, and we'll show you what we're going to do on the top part of the saucer here. See you in just a couple seconds. Well, hello there again, everybody. We're back with you, and you can see we've got the some more of the wiring done on the saucer area here, and I'll just take you through and explain to you what we've been doing. You guys remember on the last segment there, we had our board mounted here, and we had a single power wire coming up from our lower board down into the inside of our secondary hull, which we just installed this little jumper wire here, which brings power up to the board. And then we've also got our little wire hooked up here, which was lighting our navigational sensor on the bottom. So what I've added in now is I've added the extra jumpers here for the navigation lights and for our impulse engine lighting here at the back. Now I made a couple of modifications to this, and I'll talk about those real quick. As I mentioned, I've built 6 of these so far, and I've noticed that these LEDs that come with the lighting kit here in some cases are inadequate. They're just not very bright, and I noticed a lot of people out there doing modifications for the navigation lights so they show up a little bit brighter when they blink. And so what I did is I substituted my own LEDs in place of the kit supplied LED, which they just weren't lighting up very bright, to put it simply. And so what I've done here is I've replaced these with some white LEDs for our flasher on the bottom side of the saucer, which is a 5mm, and for our little flasher here on the side of the saucer, which is a 2mm LED in white. Now we already have built-in resistors here on the board, so we didn't need to put a resistor on these. And I just tied the two together here on the plus and the minus and hooked them directly into this harness here by clipping off the original LED and stripping the wire and soldering those on. I did that on both sides here. And you can see that we also had our other two power wires coming in, which I mentioned before, which are going to be used to light our window lighting on the perimeter of the saucer here. As you can see, I've got these little strips of LED mounted down. They've all been wired in, and you can see that each one of them has a plus and a minus coming off of it all the way across here. And what I've done basically is brought our wire in and connected it to our wire that came up out of the neck. And I've ran a single power wire in red all the way around the circumference here. It terminates right at this area right here. And a black wire all the way around the perimeter here, which is our negative. And I've just jumped into each one of these with a connection along the way, so that we have what's called a parallel circuit. In other words, each one of these individual components has its own power going to it. So if any one of these components were to fail or we lose a connection here somewhere, the rest of it's going to keep working. The other type of circuit that you can make is what's called a series, which series is basically a chain. I've explained this before, but I'll go over it again, where we would tie our power in at the entrance here and then bring it out and onto the next and onto the next. Well, the problem with that is if any point of that chain breaks, everything beyond that point will no longer function because it won't be able to get power to it. So this is a safer way to make sure that if you do lose an individual part, you'll still have power to the main components on the rest of the components on the main circuit. So I'm going to turn this on now for you, and you can see that we've got our flashing navigation lights out now here. One more thing I forgot to mention is we've got our LEDs here in place for the impulse engines. Now these were actually the LEDs that were going to be used for the navigation lights, and they're kind of an odd shape. They've got a flat top on them, and they're kind of barrel shaped, and they're gonna, you know, they didn't work so good for flasher lights, but they're going to work really well for the impulse engine lights. Now those were molded in clear. So what I did basically here is I just dipped these in some Tamiya clear transparent red to make them turn them into red LEDs, and then we're also going to spray the little grill that goes in place here, the transparent grill that goes in place on the impulse deck, so we'll get a nice red glow. We'll do a little bit of diffusion in there with something, and that'll give us a nice red glow out the impulse engines. But you can see we've got all these components working here except for these two strips in front, and I wanted to demonstrate here for you, actually these three here. I've soldered all these connections except the negative side of each one of these, just so I could demonstrate to you how this magnet wire works. Basically, the way I use this magnet wire is I just wrap the wire. You can see that I stripped the wire on all these segments here of the plus and minus wire, and I just wrap the wire around it with the insulation and all on there. I don't strip the insulation on the magnet wire because I don't have to. My solder iron will get hot enough to melt that with a little bit of solder, melt right through it, and we'll make a connection, and you'll see that here as we go. I'm going to start off by soldering this first connection here. Again, I've already soldered the positive side all the way around, so all we have to do is solder these three negative connections here, and these will light right up. So let me start with this one right here. And I kind of like doing it this way because this gives me an indication that I've got a good solder joint on each one of these, and it shows me that the circuit's working as soon as the lights come on there. Now let's go on to this next one. As soon as we get melted through that insulation, you can see that they light right up. We're going to finish off on this one over here. So effectively what's happened here is that we've used the heat from the solder iron and tinning it with a little solder. We've melted right through that insulation on that magnet wire, and we've now got a good solder connection there, and all of our lighting is coming through really nicely for us. So what we're going to be doing now is moving on to the rest of the saucer assembly here. I've got pretty much all this main part done now. Now what we've got to do next is we've got to, I'll bring the top of the saucer over here and show you. We've got to next install our bridge assembly, which I'm working on painting that right now and adding our photo etch parts to that. So we're going to glue the bridge in place here, and then what I'm going to be doing is taking a piece of square sheet styrene, and rather than mounting individual LEDs in here like it's called for, we're going to lay two strips of LED tape down on this, facing upward, and 2 strips facing down, and then glue this in place. And that's going to give us all the lighting we need for our windows here and for the bridge area. And then we're going to add our flashing, 2 more of these connectors here with the strobe lights, which I'll replace the, the navigation lights, which I'm going to also replace the LEDs on those. I'm actually going to use a colored red LED and a colored green LED. And then we'll get those put in place, and all we have to do is connect those onto the harness here and plug into the board just before we go to close the saucer up. We're also going to be putting a couple of strips of LED tape down on this, which are going to shine down and light our lower windows here you see in these corners right here on the bottom side of the saucer. And that will be our lighting. You can see as we lay this on top here, we've already got our lighting that's going to come through here for this one at the front and these rectangular shaped windows that reflects upward from these. So we're all set, guys. So what I'm going to do now is I'll be working on the bridge. You can see that what I've done here is I've glued the BC deck in place, and I've laid a bead of glue all the way around this circumference here, and I've already light blocked this so that we don't get any light leakage coming through around the seam where we've glued it down on the top of the saucer. And I've laid a bead of canopy glue down on this and let it dry, and then I've airbrushed over it so that you don't even see that line where it blends into the saucer. It makes a nice smooth transition there, so it looks really good. So that's what we're going to do next, guys. I'll be right back with that. We'll have the bridge put together, and we'll come back and I'm going to show you how I actually make this little piece of styrene here, and we're going to glue down our LED strip lighting, and you'll see how nice that works. That will serve to light up these windows here in the center, and also light up our BC deck windows and put some nice illumination up in our bridge. Let me explain real quick before I close here on this. I like to do this way again because mounting the LEDs really close up into the bridge here, I found, makes the lighting inside of the bridge area glare too much. It's way too bright. Or if we've got the nice LED strip lighting reflecting up in there, we get all the screens and everything lit up on the bridge very well, and it gives it much more of a natural looking light that maybe you've seen the way I've done this before on a couple of my other builds that you've seen on YouTube, and I really think it turns out nice. So, okay guys, I'll be back with that in just a second. We'll move forward with the rest of the build here. Once we get this done, we can close up the saucer, and then we'll be finishing with our seam work around the edge. We're going to have to touch that up, and then it'll be on to the decals and the rest of the small details in this model. We're moving ahead really good, so be right back with that in a second, guys. Alright everybody, so here we are one more time, and you can see we've been working on the upper part of the saucer now. We made our sheet that I talked about out of styrene here, which we've glued these strips of LED tape down. I've got 2 identical strips that are on the top side of that that are going to light our BC deck and our bridge that I've just finished painting and assembling, and it's all installed in there. And you can see we've got our flashers here installed. I replaced these LEDs like I mentioned with some good ones. We've got the green and the red. We've got 2 more LED strips here which are going to light the 3 little round windows on the bottom side of the saucer. And you can see I can turn this on now, and we've got light here this light here will be shining down to light the windows at the center of the saucer on the bottom. And let me flip this over here for you so you can see how nice the BC deck is lit up. You can see it lights all these windows really nice and even. We've got to put in those little red ones here at the corner of the bridge there, but you can see looking inside, hopefully you guys can see this here if I can turn it the right way. I really like how that amount of light lights up our bridge there. You can see it's not glaring really good. You can see all the little screens in there showing up really nice. We've got our little crew figures in there, so this turned out really good. Okay guys, I'm going to go ahead and hook this up now. I'm losing my connection here. I'm going to go ahead and hook all this up, and we're going to glue the saucer top down now, and we'll be really getting things going here. So then we can go on and start doing some decal work on the rest of the model. So let's get this mounted, and we'll come right back with that. Hi again everybody. Well, we're back with you one more time for the last segment of this video update. You can see we've got our saucer top mounted down on there. It's been drying for a little while. I just pulled the tape that was holding it together a little bit ago, and I've just put my first coat of putty down on that, and I'll be sanding that. I've got to let that dry for an hour or so, and then I'll come back and sand that. So in the next video update, we're going to show you how we touch up the saucer, and we'll be doing the rest of the assembly here. You can see we've got all of our lighting in place now. It's looking good. Here, I'll give you a little peek at the bridge in there. We've got our little crew members in there like we always put in there, and our nice screens and everything are lit up. It turned out really great. I'm really happy with that. And you can see our BC deck is lighting up nicely there. Started putting on a few of these little marker indicators and things like that. So we've got just mostly detail parts to go on this now. The manifolds there at the back and the inserts here on the grills and on the pylons and a few other spots. We've got to paint the deflector dish and the housing. And we've got to paint the base still. And then of course all the decals to do. But we're going to cover all that in the next video, guys. So I hope you enjoyed this one. We'll be back again for in a couple days, and we'll have the finale of this one for you. And then we're going to be starting on an Enterprise refit again. And so that'll be a lot of fun. All right, guys, so take care. We'll catch up with you later. Until we do, happy modeling, everybody.